Story. Chapter 1. Brotherhood Forged in Fire. Wade Blackwood's muscles tensed as he scanned the Syrian terrain through his tactical scope. The scorching heat of Fort Bragg had prepared him for this moment, but something felt off. His instincts, honed through years of training, screamed danger. "Cooper, hold," Wade whispered into his comms, his gray eyes fixed on a subtle disturbance in the dirt ahead. Mason Cooper froze mid-step, his trust in Wade's judgment absolute. "Talk to me, Shadow Wolf," Mason breathed, using Wade's call sign with a mix of respect and friendship. 3 o'clock, about 20 meters. "See that darker patch?" Wade's voice remained steady as he guided his teammates' gaze. "IED, professionally placed. This is an amateur hour." Mason's breath caught as he spotted the telltale signs. "Jesus, that would have taken out our whole unit." "Fall back. I'm calling an EOD," Wade ordered, already radioing for the explosive ordnance disposal team. Hours later, huddled in a safe house on the outskirts of Damascus, Mason gripped Wade's shoulder. "You saved our lives back there, brother. I owe you everything." Wade shook his head. "We're Rangers. It's what we do." "No, this is different." Mason's voice cracked with emotion. "I need to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone." The safe house fell silent except for distant gunfire. Mason pulled out a worn photograph from his tactical vest. "This is my father," he said, hands trembling. "Thomas Cooper. Successful businessman, loving father, murdered when I was 12. Wade studied the image, a man with Mason's strong jaw and kind eyes, standing proudly in front of a suburban home. "Police ruled it a home invasion," Mason continued, bitterness seeping into his words. "But I saw her, Wade. My stepmother, Andrea. She was on the phone minutes before it happened, whispering about, making it look random. I heard her say the words, 'no witnesses.' Did you tell the police?" "They dismissed it. I was just a traumatized kid in their eyes." Mason's knuckles whitened around his rifle. "Andrea got everything. The house, the business, the insurance money. She even got custody of me, played the grieving widow perfectly." Wade processed this information with the same tactics he applied to combat situations. "Why tell me this now?" "Because you see what others miss. You read situations, patterns." Mason leaned forward, intensity burning in his eyes. "Help me prove what she did. I've got money saved, resources. I just need your skills, your mind." Wade considered the request. This wasn't just about solving a cold case. It was about justice, about brotherhood. "Tell me everything you remember from that night. Every detail matters." Over the next several months, between missions, Wade and Mason built their case. Wade's tactical approach to intelligence gathering proved invaluable. They traced Andrea's phone records from that period, uncovered financial irregularities, and identified the hitman she'd hired, a former employee of Thomas Cooper's company with gambling debts. The breakthrough came when Wade noticed a pattern in Andrea's charitable donations. Large sums were being funneled through a women's shelter to an offshore account. The shelter's director, under pressure from Wade's carefully gathered evidence, revealed that Andrea had used the charity to launder the hitman's payment. Justice finally came on a rainy Tuesday. Andrea Cooper, now remarried and living in Phoenix, opened her door to find federal agents with an arrest warrant. The evidence was ironclad, the case meticulously built. Mason watched from across the street as his stepmother was led away in handcuffs, his hand gripping Wade's shoulder. "It's over," Wade said quietly. Mason turned to him, tears mixing with rain. "No, brother. For us, it's just beginning." Their bond, forged in combat and strengthened through pursuit of justice, led them to attend a veterans fundraiser at the Grand Lawrence Hotel. Neither man could have predicted how this event would change their lives. The ballroom buzzed with activity as Wade adjusted his tie, uncomfortable in civilian clothes. His eyes automatically mapped exit points and security positions, habits that never died. "Stop analyzing threats and start analyzing that beauty at 2 o'clock, Mason nudged him, gesturing toward a woman in a navy blue dress moving purposefully through the crowd. Natalie Lawrence commanded attention without seeking it. Her emerald eyes swept the room with intelligence and warmth as she coordinated with staff, checked on guests, and ensured the fundraiser ran smoothly. Wade found himself drawn to her efficiency, the way she managed chaos with grace. "Miss Lawrence," Mason called out, waving her over. "Let me introduce you to the man who's kept me alive through 2 tours. Wade Blackwood, This is Natalie Lawrence, the infamous Shadow Wolf. Natalie smiled, extending her hand. Mason's told me about your remarkable ability to read situations. Wade clasped her hand, noting her firm grip. All part of the job. Speaking of jobs, Natalie's eyes sparkled with interest. I'd love your perspective on our hotel security protocols. We're expanding our veterans program, and safety is paramount. Their conversation shifted from polite small talk to detailed discussion of security measures. Wade found himself impressed by her technical knowledge and genuine concern for veteran welfare. My family's hotels have always been profitable, Natalie explained as they walked through the hotel's secure areas. But I want them to mean something more. These men and women who served, they deserve places that understand their needs, their challenges. It's a noble goal, Wade replied, already noting potential improvements to their security setup. But it requires specialized knowledge, dedicated staff. That's why I need people like you, Wade. Natalie stopped, turning to face him. Would you consider consulting for us? Help make these hotels genuine sanctuaries for veterans. The request surprised him, but the mission resonated with his own desire to continue serving, albeit in a different capacity. I need to see your current protocols, understand your vision fully. Dinner tomorrow? We can discuss details. Natalie's proposal was professional, but there was something more in her eyes, a spark of personal interest that Wade couldn't ignore. That dinner led to many more. Wade helped Natalie transform her family's traditional hotels into state-of-the-art facilities equipped to handle the unique needs of veteran guests. She, in turn, helped him navigate the transition to civilian life, showing him how his military skills translated to business. Mason watched their relationship develop with outward enthusiasm, but his private journals told a different story. Pages filled with increasingly obsessive thoughts about Natalie, about their secret conversations during security consultations, about the way she laughed at his jokes. The wedding was held at the historical Lawrence Inn, the family's first property. Mason stood as best man, his toast bringing tears to eyes across the room. I've seen Wade Blackwood save lives in combat. Mason's voice carried clear emotion. I've seen him fight for justice when others would give up. But watching him fall in love with Natalie, that's been his greatest mission yet. To my brother and his beautiful bride. As glasses clinked and guests cheered, Mason's hand crushed the letter in his pocket. Natalie's handwriting burned in his mind. We have to stop meeting. I'm marrying Wade. What we did was a mistake. Please, Mason, let me go. He raised his champagne with a perfect smile, while his other hand shredded the evidence of betrayal into confetti. Chapter 2. The First Betrayal. 2 years into his marriage, Wade sat in his home office reviewing security footage from the Grand Lawrence Hotel. His attention caught on a familiar figure entering a service elevator at 11:47 p.m., Mason Cooper, carrying what appeared to be security equipment. Wade leaned back, rubbing his temples. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Natalie's late meetings coinciding with Mason's security consultations. The way they stood slightly too close during staff briefings. The subtle changes in Natalie's behavior when Mason was mentioned. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in. Marcus Reynolds entered, still wearing his chef's whites from the hotel kitchen. The former CIA operative had traded international intrigue for culinary arts, but his instincts remained sharp. You were right about the room's service orders, Marcus said, placing a folder on Wade's desk. Suite 712 receives deliveries at odd hours, but the food's barely touched. It's being used as a meeting point. Wade opened the folder, studying the detailed logs. How long? 3 months, based on the patterns I've found. Marcus pulled up a chair. But there's something else. These threatening letters that started arriving at the hotel? I've analyzed the paper, the ink composition. They're using military-grade materials. Wade's jaw tightened. He'd suspected the threats were manufactured, a reason for increased security presence, for Mason to spend more time around Natalie. Now he had proof. Your friend's playing a dangerous game, Marcus observed quietly. He's not my friend anymore, Wade replied, his voice cold. He's a target. The investigation expanded. Wade recruited trusted staff members, set up surveillance protocols, and began mapping the extent of the betrayal. Each discovery was a fresh wound, but he processed them with military detachment. The anniversary dinner at Le Maison Rouge should have been a celebration. Wade had planned to surprise Natalie with news of his honorable discharge and his acceptance into Aegis, an elite private security firm. Instead, he watched his wife check her phone throughout the meal, her reflection in the window revealing messages to Mason. "Everything all right?" he asked, maintaining a casual tone. Natalie slipped her phone into her purse. "Just work stuff. The new property in Charleston is having some issues with the contractor." Wade nodded, noting the slight tremor in her voice, a tell he'd learned to recognize during poker nights. "Mason's handling security for that location, isn't he?" "Among others." Natalie sipped her wine. "He's been invaluable during the expansion." "I'm sure he has." Wade smiled, but his mind was already calculating moves and countermoves. "Speaking of Mason, how's he doing? We haven't had our usual drinks lately." "Oh, you know Mason. Always busy with one project or another." Natalie's phone buzzed again. She didn't check it, but her fingers twitched toward her purse. Wade excused himself to use the restroom. In the hallway, he sent a text to Marcus. "Begin surveillance protocol Alpha. Target is active tonight." The rest of dinner passed in a blur of forced smiles and careful conversation. Wade played his role perfectly, the unsuspecting husband enjoying an anniversary celebration. Inside, he was already at war. Later that night, after Natalie fell asleep, Wade slipped into his office and activated the sophisticated monitoring equipment he'd installed months ago. Mason's phone signal was moving toward their usual meeting spot, the Blue Room, a high-end bar at the Grand Lawrence. Wade watched through hacked security feeds as Natalie arrived shortly after, taking care to enter through separate doors. They thought they were being clever, maintaining operational security like they'd been trained. But Wade had trained better. Their conversation, captured by directional microphones, revealed the depth of their betrayal. Plans to leave together. Money being moved through offshore accounts. Mason's gambling debts and promises to pay them off with embezzled hotel funds. Wade recorded everything. Each file another piece of ammunition in the war to come. But he needed more. Needed to understand the full scope of their deception before he struck. The next morning, Natalie kissed him goodbye as usual. "Board meeting today? Might be late." "No problem. I've got that security consultation at the Charleston property anyway." The lie came easily now. Instead, Wade met with Marcus at their secure location, a private room above Marcus's restaurant. The former CIA operative had more intel to share. The threatening letters were definitely written by Mason, Marcus confirmed. But here's where it gets interesting. He's been using hotel resources to create them, accessing restricted areas after hours. "Sloppy," Wade muttered. "He's getting desperate." "There's more." Marcus pulled out financial records. Large sums are moving through the hotel's accounts. Someone's cooking the books, and it's not just Mason. Wade studied the numbers, seeing the pattern emerge. "Natalie. She's helping him hide the embezzlement." "What's our next move?" Wade stood, moving to the window. Below, tourists and locals bustled along the street, unaware of the drama unfolding in their midst. "We wait. Let them think they're succeeding. The more confident they get, the more mistakes they'll make. And then we show them what real betrayal looks like." Chapter 3, Blood in the Alley. Derek Lawrence hadn't planned on becoming a whistleblower. As the family's black sheep, he'd spent years trying to distance himself from the hotel business, pursuing a career in photography instead. But when his girlfriend Rebecca Torres, a housekeeper at the Grand Lawrence, showed him evidence of his sister's affair, he couldn't ignore it. "Look at these photos," Rebecca said, spreading them across their kitchen table. Each image showed Natalie and Mason in various hotel locations, their body language telling a clear story. "They think nobody notices, but the staff sees everything." Derek picked up a photo of them in a service corridor, heads close together, Mason's hand on Natalie's waist. "How long have you known?" "Months. At first, I thought they were just doing security checks." Rebecca pulled out a notebook filled with dates and times. "But then I started noticing patterns. Late-night meetings, private dining rooms booked under false names." "Wade needs to know." Rebecca grabbed his arm. "Derek, there's more. I've seen financial documents in the executive office while cleaning. Large transfers, irregular amounts. Something's not right." Derek ran his hands through his hair, mind racing. His sister had always been the perfect one, the heir apparent to the Lawrence empire. Now she was not only betraying her husband, but possibly embezzling from the family business. He found Mason at the Rusty Nail, the dive bar that had launched the Lawrence family's hospitality empire. The former ranger sat at the bar, already several drinks in. "We need to talk," Derek said, sliding onto the next stool. Mason barely glanced at him. Not now, Derek. Yes, now. Derek pulled out one of Rebecca's photos. Want to explain this? Mason's reaction was instant. He grabbed the photo, crumpling it in his fist. You've been spying on us? Didn't need to spy. You two aren't as careful as you think. Derek leaned closer, voice low. Does Wade know you're stealing from us? Mason's face contorted with rage. He grabbed Derek's collar, dragging him toward the back door. They burst into the alley behind the bar, Mason's military training evident in his grip. You don't know what you're talking about. Mason snarled, shoving Derek against the brick wall. I know enough. Derek stood his ground despite his racing heart. Rebecca found the transfer records. How much have you and Natalie taken? Mason's laugh was bitter. You think this is about money? Your sister's suffocating in your family's legacy. I'm giving her a way out. By stealing from us? By building a future? Mason's control snapped. He pulled a tactical knife from his boot, the blade glinting in the dim light. Walk away, Derek. This doesn't concern you. It's my family's business. Your family. Mason pressed the knife against Derek's ribs. Where were they when you wanted to be a photographer? When you were dating a housekeeper? Don't pretend you care about the Lawrence legacy now. The confrontation might have ended there if Wade hadn't appeared at the alley's entrance, his figure silhouetted against the street lights. Put the knife down, Mason. Wade's voice was eerily calm. Mason spun, keeping Derek pinned. Stay back, Wade. This isn't what you think. No. Wade took a step forward. It's exactly what I think. You're threatening my brother-in-law to cover up your affair with my wife. The revelation hung in the air. Mason's grip on Derek loosened slightly. How long have you known? Long enough. Wade's gray eyes were cold. The threatening letters were a nice touch. Military-grade paper, though? Amateur mistake. Mason's face twisted with a mix of guilt and defiance. She never loved you, Wade. You were just a means to an end. Maybe. Wade took another step. But you were just a pawn in her game. Did she tell you about the other men? The ones before you? Doubt flickered across Mason's features. The knife wavered. You're lying. Am I? Wade pulled out his phone, displaying a series of text messages. Ask her about James in Miami. Or Michael in Atlanta. You're not special, Mason. You're just the latest fool she's manipulated. Mason's grip on Derek loosened further, his confidence cracking. That moment of hesitation was all Wade needed. He moved with the precision that had earned him his reputation, disarming Mason in one fluid motion. But Mason hadn't survived multiple combat tours by being predictable. He released Derek and charged at Wade, turning the alley into a battlefield. Their military training showed in every move. Precise strikes, calculated defenses, each man knowing the other's tactics. Derek scrambled to his feet, pulling out his phone to call for help. Mason noticed and lunged for him, desperation making him reckless. Wade intercepted, but Mason's momentum carried them both into a stack of empty crates. The sound of heels clicking on pavement drew their attention. Natalie stood at the alley's entrance, her elegant business attire incongruous with the violence before her. Stop this, she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. Mason froze, his face bleeding from Wade's strikes. Natalie, tell him he's wrong. Tell him about us. Natalie's emerald eyes assessed the situation. 3 men, her husband, her lover, and her brother, all waiting for her next move. She took a step backward. Natalie. Mason's voice cracked with uncertainty. She turned and ran. The moment stretched like a wire about to snap. Mason's face crumpled as realization hit. She had chosen neither of them. The distraction cost him. Wade's next strike sent him sprawling. Rebecca appeared from the shadows, her phone held high, recording everything. She ran to Derek's side, checking his injuries from Mason's initial attack. Mason struggled to his feet, blood dripping from his split lip. He looked at Wade, his former brother-in-arms, and saw only a stranger. Without another word, he staggered away into the night. Wade stood in the alley, his own injuries beginning to register. He watched as Natalie returned to observe from a distance, her figure half-hidden behind a parked car. If I don't die tonight, you evil witch, Wade called out, his voice carrying the weight of promised retribution. I'll make you choke on regret. She flinched at his words, but didn't respond, disappearing again into the darkness. Derek groaned, drawing Wade's attention. His brother-in-law was unconscious, the back of his head bleeding from where Mason had slammed him into the wall. He needs a hospital, Rebecca said, already dialing 911. She kept her phone recording, documenting everything. I got it all on video, Wade. Everything. Sirens wailed in the distance as Wade knelt beside Derek. This wasn't how he'd planned to confront them, but maybe it was better this way. Now he had witnesses, evidence, and most importantly, confirmation of Natalie's true nature. The paramedics arrived quickly, loading Derek into the ambulance. Wade refused treatment for his own injuries, his military training kicking in. Pain was information, and he needed to stay sharp. In the hospital waiting room, Wade pulled out a burner phone he'd prepared months ago. He had hoped he wouldn't need it, that he'd been wrong about Natalie and Mason. Now, as he typed a message to Marcus, he felt a cold clarity settling over him. Operation Judas is ready when you are, Shadow Wolf. Marcus's reply was immediate. Assets in place. Awaiting your command. Wade pocketed the phone and walked to the window. The city lights blurred through his swelling eye, but his vision of revenge was crystal clear. Natalie thought she knew his tactical genius from their years together. Mason believed he understood Wade's strategic mind from their military service. They were both wrong. The Shadow Wolf hadn't earned his name by winning battles. He'd earned it by seeing the whole war before it began. As doctors worked to save Derek down the hall, Wade began mentally assembling his pieces on the board. Marcus Reynolds with his CIA background and cover as a chef. Rebecca Torres with her evidence and access to the hotel's inner workings. And soon, others who would prove invaluable in the coming operation. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice, about exposing corruption that ran deeper than just his wife's infidelity. The Lawrence family's empire had secrets, and Wade would uncover them all. He touched his bruised ribs, embracing the pain. It would serve as a reminder of this night, of the moment when everything changed. The foundation of trust had crumbled, but from its ruins, Wade would build something else, a monument to calculated retribution. The nurse called his name, informing him that Derek was stable but in a coma. Wade nodded, already incorporating this development into his plans. He wouldn't just destroy those who had betrayed him, he would dismantle their world piece by piece, showing them the true meaning of tactical warfare. The first act was over. The pieces were in place. And in the coming days, Wade Blackwood would prove why he was the most dangerous kind of enemy, one with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. Chapter 4. Recovery and Resources. The hospital room's beeping monitors provided a steady rhythm as Wade Blackwood reviewed surveillance footage on his laptop. His bruised ribs protested each breath, but pain was an old friend from his military days. What mattered now was building his network. Sir, you have a visitor, the nurse announced, her voice professional but warm. Isabella Martinez? Wade minimized the surveillance feed. Send her in. Izzy Martinez strode into the room with the confident bearing of someone used to commanding attention. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her business suit couldn't quite hide her military posture. You look terrible, she said, dropping a thick folder on his bedside table. Good to see you too, Izzy. Wade gestured to the chair beside his bed. South America seems like a lifetime ago. 3 years, 2 months. Izzy sat, her expression serious. I got your message. Surveillance photos of your wife and best friend? That's not exactly what I expected when you said you needed a favor. Wade leaned forward slightly, ignoring the pain. I need more than a favor. I need your entire security firm. Corporate espionage protection is a bit different from whatever revenge plan you're cooking up. Is it? Wade opened the folder she'd brought, scanning the contents. Your firm specializes in protecting companies from industrial spies, rival corporations, insider threats. Tell me, what's the difference between that and what I need? Izzy's eyes narrowed as she studied him. They'd worked together on classified operations in South America, where Wade's tactical genius had saved their team multiple times. She recognized the look in his eyes, not blind rage, but calculated determination. You're not just after revenge on your wife and Mason, she said slowly. You're going after the entire Lawrence empire. Wade nodded. They've built their success on corruption and lies. I'm going to expose it all, piece by piece. You'll need more than just my security firm. Already working on that. Wade picked up his phone as another knock sounded at the door. Marcus Reynolds entered, still in his chef's uniform. The former CIA operative turned hotel chef nodded to Izzy before turning to Wade. Rebecca Torres came through, Marcus reported. She's been documenting Mason and Natalie's meetings for months. Financial records, too. Seems our boy Mason's been sloppy with his embezzlement. Izzy raised an eyebrow. The housekeeper? Never underestimate the invisible people, Wade said. Hotel staff see everything, hear everything. Rebecca's evidence will be crucial. The door opened again, admitting a quiet, efficient-looking Asian man in scrubs. Time for your medication, Mr. Blackwood, Samuel Chin said, checking Wade's for. Wade caught the slight tremor in Samuel's hands, the barely concealed anger in his eyes. Tell them, Samuel. Tell them what the Lawrence family did to your parents. Samuel paused, then spoke in a controlled voice. My family owned the Golden Dragon restaurant chain. 10 locations across 3 states. The Lawrences wanted to expand their hotel restaurants into Asian fusion cuisine. We refused to sell. His hands clenched. They used their connections to have our health inspections rigged, our suppliers pressured, our loans called in. Now my parents cook in their kitchen, watching tourists eat bastardized versions of our family recipes. Izzy studied Samuel with new interest. And you're working here because I'm good at my job, Samuel replied. And because someday I want justice. Wade gestured to his 3 visitors. This is just the beginning. Marcus has contacts in federal law enforcement. Samuel has access to the Lawrence family's medical records. And you, Izzy, have the infrastructure we need to coordinate everything. What about Mason? Marcus asked. He's gone to ground, using his military connections. That's where our next ally comes in. Wade pressed a button on his phone. The door opened one final time, revealing a massive figure that seemed to fill the frame. Thomas Tank Morrison walked in, his military bearing unchanged despite the slight limp from his old injury. Shadow Wolf, Tank rumbled. Been a while. Tank. Wade nodded. How's civilian life treating you? Better than it treated Mason. Tank's expression darkened. Bastard disobeyed orders, got me shot, then had the nerve to blame equipment failure. Ended my career. Wade let that sink in for the others. Tank runs security for 3 major casino chains. He's also got a network of veteran contractors who are very interested in how the Lawrence family has been misusing funds meant for PTSD treatment programs. The room fell silent as each person considered their role in what Wade was proposing. It wasn't just revenge, it was justice on multiple fronts, carefully orchestrated to expose years of corruption. We'll need secure communications, Izzy said finally. My firm has protocols we can adapt. I can monitor the family's movements through the hospital system, Samuel added. Derek's condition gives me access to their private wing. Marcus pulled out his phone. I've got FBI contacts who'd be very interested in certain financial irregularities once we have enough evidence. My boys can track Mason, Tank growled. He'll surface in Vegas eventually. They all do. Wade looked at each of them in turn. These weren't just allies. They were people who had their own reasons to see the Lawrence Empire fall. People who understood that revenge was best served not cold, but precisely. One thing, Izzy said, raising a hand. We do this clean. No collateral damage to innocent employees, no tactics that could backfire legally. Agreed. Wade pulled up a document on his laptop. I've already mapped out the first phase. Each of you has specific skills, specific roles. Together, we're going to dismantle an empire piece by piece. The meeting continued late into the night, each participant adding their expertise to Wade's plan. By the time they left, Operation Judas had evolved from a revenge plot into a precise military campaign. Wade leaned back in his hospital bed, reviewing the pieces now in play. In the military, he'd learned that the best tactical advantages came from patience and preparation. The Lawrence family had no idea they were already under siege. Samuel returned for one final check before his shift ended. Your wife called the nurse's station again. She wants to visit tomorrow. Good. Wade closed his laptop. Make sure the room is prepared exactly as we discussed. Let's see what story she tries to sell. As Samuel left, Wade touched the bruises on his face, badges of the betrayal that had set all this in motion. Soon, those bruises would heal. But the wounds he was about to inflict on the Lawrence Empire? Those would leave scars that would never fade. Chapter 5, The Hidden Hand. Natalie Lawrence's heels clicked against the hospital floor as she approached Wade's room, her outfit carefully chosen to project concerned wife rather than calculating businesswoman. She'd brought flowers, magazines, and her most convincing sympathetic expression. The room's security cameras, hidden by Izzy's team, captured every nuance of her performance. "Darling, you look awful," Natalie said, arranging the flowers by his bed. "Why won't you let them give you stronger pain medication?" Wade watched her hands, noting how they strayed toward his phone on the bedside table. "Need to stay sharp. How's Derek?" "Still no change." She perched on the edge of his bed, her emerald eyes filling with practiced tears. "The doctors say the next 48 hours are crucial." "And Mason?" Her pause was barely noticeable. "No one's heard from him." "Wade, I'm so sorry about what happened. If I'd known he was unstable." "You'd have what?" Wade kept his voice neutral. "Stopped meeting him in hotel rooms." Natalie's face showed a flicker of shock before smoothing into confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Don't." Wade held up a hand. "Just don't. We both know what's been happening. The only question is what happens next." She stood, moving to the window. The hidden camera there captured her reflection, the subtle play of calculations behind her eyes. "Nothing happened between Mason and me. He was obsessed, yes, but I never encouraged it." "Richard's here to see you, Mr. Blackwood," Samuel announced from the doorway, right on schedule. Richard Lawrence entered, his expensive suit and commanding presence filling the room. "Wade, my boy, terrible business, all this. Simply terrible." Wade caught the quick glance between father and daughter. The next moves would be crucial. "Daddy, I was just telling Wade how worried we all are," Natalie said, her voice taking on a childlike quality that Wade had once found endearing. Richard sat heavily in the visitor's chair. "The board is handling everything, son. You focus on recovery. And don't worry about Mason Cooper. I've got private investigators tracking him down." The hidden cameras recorded everything. Richard's subtle hand signals to Natalie, their practiced concern, the way they positioned themselves between Wade and his phone. "Actually," Wade said, "I've been thinking about the veteran programs we discussed. The new contracts for the PTSD treatment facilities." Richard waved a hand dismissively. "All being taken care of. My military experience gives us a unique understanding of what veterans need." In the surveillance room down the hall, Izzy and Marcus exchanged glances. Richard's military experience was about to become very interesting. "Tell me more about your service, Richard," Wade prompted. "You were in Special Forces, right?" "Rangers, actually." Richard launched into his familiar story about classified missions and heroic rescues. Wade noticed Natalie's slight tension. She'd heard these stories enough times to know they were rehearsed. But did she know they were completely fabricated? The conversation continued for another hour, each moment recorded and analyzed. After they left, Tank entered the room. "Got it all," he reported. Every inconsistency in his military stories, times he claimed to be in combat zones when records show he was actually in Atlanta. Boy's never seen a day of service in his life. Wade nodded. "And the tribal lands?" Sarah Redfeathers agreed to meet. Marine Corps veteran, 20 years service. She's been fighting the Lawrence's land grabs for a decade. The pieces were falling into place. Richard's stolen valor, the misused veteran program funds, the Native American land disputes. All threads that would help unravel the Lawrence empire. Marcus arrived next, his chef's uniform exchanged for casual clothes. Mason surfaced in Vegas. High-stakes poker tables, burning through cash. But that's not the interesting part. The motorcycle gang? The Iron Knights. They're not just providing protection. Mason's training them in military tactics. Tank's contacts spotted them doing drills in the desert. Wade processed this information. Mason was desperate, dangerous. The combination of gambling debts and criminal connections made him unpredictable. "Have Tank set up the security consultant cover," Wade instructed. "Make it attractive enough that Mason can't refuse, but not so obvious it raises suspicion." Izzy entered last, her tablet displaying surveillance feeds from multiple Lawrence properties. Natalie's getting sloppy. She accessed 3 different secure servers today, downloading files. Want to guess what she's trying to hide? The blackmail operation? Bingo. Izzy swiped through screenshots. Politicians, business leaders, anyone who stayed at their hotels. They've got dirt on half the power players in the Southeast. Wade's tactical mind assembled the patterns. The Lawrence family hadn't built their empire on business acumen. They'd built it on secrets and lies, using stolen valor and blackmail to crush competition and secure contracts. Start with the veterans angle, he decided. Tank's network can organize protests, demand investigations into the PTSD treatment funds. Meanwhile, Sarah Redfeather's lawsuit about the tribal lands will divide their legal resources. What about Mason? Marcus asked. Let him dig his own grave. Once he's working for our shell company, we'll have everything we need to control him. Wade gestured to the surveillance feeds. The Lawrence family thinks they're masters of manipulation. Time to show them what real psychological warfare looks like. The team dispersed, each member clear on their role in the operation. Wade watched them go, thinking about the layers of deception being woven. The Lawrence empire was built on lies. It would fall by having those lies exposed one by one. In the next room, Derek Lawrence lay unconscious, his monitors beeping steadily. Wade looked at his brother-in-law through the observation window, remembering his attempt to warn them about Mason. We'll make it right, Wade promised quietly. All of it. The game was in motion. Wade had learned in combat that the most dangerous enemies weren't the ones who attacked head-on. They were the ones who made you destroy yourself. The Lawrence family was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Chapter 6. Pressure Points. Sarah Redfeather stood at the edge of her tribe's ancestral lands, her Marine Corps bearing evident in her straight spine and steady gaze. The Lawrence family's newest hotel loomed in the distance, built on ground that should have been protected by federal law. Your evidence is compelling, she told Wade, who sat in his wheelchair beside her. His injuries were healing, but the wheelchair helped maintain the image of vulnerability the Lawrences needed to see. But why help us? This isn't just about your wife's betrayal. No, Wade agreed. It's about justice. Richard Lawrence built his empire on lies, stolen valor, misused veteran funds, stolen land. Time to tear it all down. Sarah nodded slowly. My people have documentation going back decades. Proof of illegal construction, violation of sacred sites, combined with evidence of their fraudulent veteran programs. It'll force a federal investigation, Wade finished. But we need to coordinate the timing. Hit them from multiple angles when they're most vulnerable. Back at the hospital, Rebecca Torres slipped into Derek's private room, ostensibly to clean. Her uniform provided perfect cover as she photographed documents left carelessly on Richard Lawrence's desk. Notes about payoffs, blackmail targets, offshore accounts. Marcus received the photos through their secure channel, adding them to the growing evidence. His FBI contacts were already showing interest in the financial patterns emerging. In Las Vegas, Mason Cooper sat across from a man he knew as Frank Thompson, actually Tank, playing the role of a disgraced security consultant. The job's simple, Tank explained, sliding a contract across the table. New hotel chain needs security expertise. Someone with military background, someone who understands high-level protection protocols. Mason's hands shook slightly as he reached for the papers. His expensive suit couldn't hide the desperation in his eyes. The pay is generous. Plus benefits, relocation allowance. Tank leaned back. Of course, we'll need you to cut ties with certain associates. Mason glanced over his shoulder, aware of the Iron Knights enforcers watching from across the casino. That could be complicated. We can help with that. Clean slate, fresh start. Tank pushed a cashier's check across the table. Consider it a signing bonus. While Mason fell into their trap, Izzy's team monitored Natalie's increasingly frantic attempts to contain the situation. Her conversations with Richard, captured by their surveillance, revealed the depth of the family's corruption. Daddy, we need to do something, Natalie insisted, pacing her father's hospital suite. The tribal lawsuit is gaining attention, and these veteran protesters. Handle it like we always do, Richard snapped. Find their pressure points. Everyone has secrets. Not these veterans. They're organized, connected. And Wade. She paused. Wade knows things. About Mason, about the money. Then distract him. You're his wife. Make him believe you. We can't afford complications right now. Wade reviewed the recording with his team, each word confirming their strategy. The Lawrence family was used to being the hunters, not the hunted. They weren't prepared for an enemy who could predict their moves. Tank's veterans began their coordinated protests, each demonstration carefully staged to draw media attention. Sarah Redfeather's lawsuit gained support from environmental groups and veteran organizations. The pressure mounted steadily. In the hospital's secure wing, Samuel Chun monitored Richard Lawrence's medical records with professional detachment. The stress was taking its toll: increased blood pressure, anxiety symptoms, cognitive issues that couldn't be ignored. His physicians recommended a psychological evaluation, Samuel reported to Wade. Early signs of paranoia, possibly stress-related dementia. Wade nodded thoughtfully. Make sure those records are properly documented. We may need them later. The operation continued. Each team member played their role perfectly, applying pressure exactly where the Lawrence Empire was most vulnerable. Rebecca's position as a housekeeper gave her access to conversations and documents that proved invaluable. She overheard Natalie on the phone, speaking in hushed tones about a second set of financial records. The books need to be moved, Natalie whispered, unaware of Rebecca dusting nearby. Mason knows too much, and these new auditors are asking questions. Rebecca signaled Marcus immediately. Within hours, they had located the hidden files, digital records of blackmail payments, detailed logs of compromising information gathered from hotel guests. Look at this, Marcus said, showing the encrypted files to Wade. They've been running this operation for years. Politicians, judges, business rivals, anyone who could threaten their empire. Wade studied the data. Start with the most recent targets. The ones who might be willing to turn on them if we provide protection. Meanwhile, Tank's operation to control Mason was bearing fruit. The former ranger, now working for their shell company, grew increasingly paranoid as his position became more demanding. The Iron Knights are pressuring me for more training, Mason reported to Tank, his voice tense. They're not satisfied with basic tactics anymore. They want military-grade protocols. That's not part of our arrangement, Tank reminded him. You work for us now. Cut them loose. It's not that simple. Mason ran his hands through his hair. I owe them. And they know things. What kind of things? Mason's hesitation was telling. About the Lawrence hotels. About what really happened that night with Derek. Tank recorded everything, each admission adding to their arsenal. The Iron Knight's involvement would prove useful, another pressure point to exploit when the time came. Sarah Redfeather's lawsuit gained unexpected support when environmental groups discovered evidence of illegal waste disposal on tribal lands. Wade's team ensured the evidence reached sympathetic journalists. The Lawrence Empire isn't just built on stolen land, Sarah told reporters. It's built on poisoned earth. They've been dumping toxic chemicals here for decades. The protests at Lawrence hotels intensified. Tank's veterans, many wearing their service medals, demanded investigations into the misused PTSD treatment funds. The media couldn't ignore the spectacle of decorated soldiers accusing a prominent businessman of stealing valor. Inside the hospital, Samuel Chun watched Richard Lawrence's mental state deteriorate under the mounting pressure. The Lawrence patriarch's grip on reality became increasingly tenuous. The voices won't stop, Richard muttered during a medical examination. They know about the burial grounds, about Maria's files. Samuel recorded everything, noting the mention of Maria, Derek's long-missing mother. Another thread to pull when the time was right. Izzy's surveillance operation captured Natalie's growing desperation. She made multiple visits to Wade's hospital room, each time attempting to access his phone or personal documents. I know you're planning something, she said during one visit, her composure cracking slightly. Just tell me what you want. Money? A divorce settlement? Name your price. Wade merely watched her, saying nothing. His silence unnerved her more than any threat could have. The pressure points multiplied. Rebecca discovered evidence of bribes paid to health inspectors who had targeted Samuel's family's restaurants. Tank's casino contacts reported Mason's increasing gambling losses. Sarah's tribe uncovered documents showing decades of systematic land theft. Each revelation was carefully timed, each piece of evidence strategically deployed. The Lawrence Empire began to show cracks in its foundation. Your team's corporate accounts are being audited, Marcus reported to Wade. IRS, SEC, and 3 separate state agencies. Once they start pulling those threads, what about the blackmail victims? Wade asked. 6 have agreed to testify, all prominent figures. They're tired of living under the Lawrence family's thumb. The operation reached a crucial phase when Natalie made an unexpected move. She approached Izzy's security firm, seeking protection. Mason's becoming unstable, she told Izzy, unaware of the woman's connection to Wade. I need security, someone to watch my back. Of course, Izzy replied smoothly. I'll assign my best operative. She gestured to Tank, who stood nearby. Mr. Morrison has extensive experience in personal protection. The irony of assigning Tank to guard Natalie wasn't lost on anyone. Now they would have constant surveillance of her movements, her meetings, her attempts to salvage the crumbling empire. As Act 2 drew to a close, Wade received a text message from Natalie. "We need to talk. Just us. Let me explain everything." Wade showed the message to his team, gathered in his hospital room-turned-command center. Each piece was in place, each pressure point identified and exploited. The Lawrence Empire stood on the brink. "She's desperate," Izzy observed. "They all are." "Good." Wade closed his laptop, his expression determined. "Desperate people make mistakes, and we'll be there to capitalize on each one." The stage was set for the final act. The Lawrence family had built their empire through manipulation and betrayal. Now they would watch it fall, brought down by the very tactics they had perfected. Tank checked his phone, showing Wade a message from their Vegas contacts. "Mason's asking to meet. Says he has information about the Lawrence family that could change everything." "Perfect timing," Wade replied. All the pieces were falling into place, exactly as planned. The end game was approaching, and Wade Blackwood, the Shadow Wolf, was ready to strike. Chapter 7. The Prodigal Brother. Beeping monitors marked time in Derek Lawrence's hospital room as his eyelids flickered. Samuel Chun noticed the movement first, his trained medical eye catching the subtle signs of consciousness returning. "Mr. Lawrence?" Samuel adjusted the bed's position slightly. "Can you hear me?" Derek's eyes opened slowly, confusion evident in his gaze. His throat worked, trying to form words. "Here." Samuel held a cup of water with a straw. Small sips. After moistening his throat, Derek managed to whisper, "How long?" "You've been in a coma for 6 weeks." Samuel checked Derek's vitals. "Do you remember what happened?" Fragments of memory flashed through Derek's mind. The alley behind the rusty nail, Mason's rage, the glint of a knife. His hand moved to the back of his head where Mason had slammed him against the wall. "Mason," he croaked. "He attacked me." "Natalie, don't strain yourself," Samuel advised, but Derek grabbed his arm. "No, you don't understand. I remember, not just the attack, other things, from before." His eyes darted around the room. "Where's Rebecca?" "I'll call her." Samuel pressed the nurse call button. "But first, let's make sure you're stable." While the medical team examined Derek, Samuel sent a coded message to Wade. "Sleeping Beauty's awake. Claims additional intel." Wade arrived an hour later, moving carefully to hide his own healing injuries. "Derek, good to see you back." "Wade." Derek's voice was stronger now. "I need to tell you something. About my mother." Samuel positioned himself by the door, ensuring their privacy while maintaining his role as medical staff. Wade sat beside the bed, noting how Derek's hands trembled. "I had dreams while I was under," Derek continued. "Except they weren't dreams. They were memories. The night my mother disappeared, I was 12, hiding in Father's study." Wade leaned forward slightly. "What did you see?" "They were fighting about documents. Mother had found something in his private safe, files about payoffs, blackmail. She threatened to expose him." Derek's voice cracked. "Father said she'd never be able to prove anything. The next day, she was gone. They told everyone she ran away with a lover." Samuel watched Wade process this information. The Lawrence Empire's corruption ran deeper than they'd imagined, stretching back decades. Rebecca arrived, rushing to Derek's side. "You're awake. I've been so worried." "Tell them what you found," Derek urged her. "About the financial records." Rebecca glanced at Wade before speaking. "While you were in the coma, I kept working at the hotel. Found documentation of unusual payments from that time period. Large sums transferred to offshore accounts." "How much?" "Enough to make someone disappear permanently." Rebecca squeezed Derek's hand. "There's more. Tank's veterans discovered something about Mason. He wasn't just training that motorcycle gang. He was helping them steal prescription medications from the Lawrence Hotel's medical facilities." Wade's expression didn't change, but his mind raced with the implications. Mason's involvement with the Iron Knights was more extensive than they'd realized. The door opened, admitting Izzy Martinez. "Sorry to interrupt, but you need to hear this. Natalie just contacted our security firm. Says she needs protection from Mason. Claims he's making threats." Derek tried to sit up straighter. "She doesn't know about your connection to Wade?" "No, and I've assigned Tank as her personal security detail." Izzy's lips curved slightly. "She'll be under constant surveillance while thinking she's being protected." Wade stood, moving to the window. "How's her mental state?" "Fraying. The pressure's getting to her. Izzy pulled out her tablet. We've recorded several angry phone calls with Richard. She's worried about his cognitive decline becoming public. Samuel added his observations. Mr. Lawrence's latest medical tests show accelerating symptoms. The stress is affecting his mental state significantly. Derek absorbed this information about his father, conflicting emotions crossing his face. What do you need from me? For now, focus on recovery, Wade instructed. But those memories about your mother? They could be crucial when the time comes. After the others left, Derek turned to Rebecca. How bad has it gotten out there? Rebecca perched on his bed. The Lawrence Empire is under siege. Sarah Redfeather's lawsuit, the veteran protests, investigations into the PTSD treatment funds. Your sister's trying to hold it all together, but she's not as clever as she thinks she is, Derek finished. He closed his eyes, remembering the childhood admiration he'd once held for his older sister. Will Wade's plan work? It already is. Rebecca brushed hair from his forehead. Rest now. You'll need your strength for what's coming. In the hallway, Wade met with his team. Derek's revelations about his mother's disappearance added another layer to their operation, one that could prove devastating to the Lawrence family's remaining credibility. Have Marcus start digging into financial records from that period, he instructed Izzy. Rebecca will help you access the historical documentation. What about Mason and the prescription drug operation? Samuel asked. Let Tank handle that angle. The DEA investigation needs to appear separate from our other moves. Wade checked his phone as another message arrived. Time to increase the pressure. Phase 3 begins now. The team dispersed, each member clear on their role in the expanding operation. Wade watched them go, thinking about Derek's recovered memories. The Lawrence Empire wasn't just built on recent corruption. It was founded on it, sustained by decades of secrets and lies. In his hospital bed, Derek drifted between sleep and wakefulness, fragments of memories surfacing like debris after a storm. His mother's voice, arguments in his father's study, the sound of a safe closing. Each piece added to the puzzle, each memory another weapon in Wade's arsenal. The prodigal brother had awakened, and with him, secrets that would help bring down an empire. Chapter 8: Empire's Fall. Richard Lawrence's grip on reality crumbled during a crucial board meeting at the Grand Lawrence Hotel. Rebecca Torres, now positioned as an executive assistant, recorded everything on her tablet as the Lawrence patriarch lost control. You don't understand, Richard shouted, rising from his chair. The burial grounds, they're filled with secrets. Sarah's people know too much. We have to stop them. Board members exchanged concerned glances as Natalie tried to salvage the situation. Daddy, please. You're tired. Let's take a break. Don't patronize me. Richard slammed his hands on the table. I earned my Ranger's badge. I led men in combat. I built this empire. The room fell silent. Rebecca's tablet captured the moment Richard's carefully constructed lies began to unravel. Mr. Lawrence, a board member spoke carefully. Perhaps we should discuss succession planning. Given recent events. Recent events? Richard's laugh held an edge of hysteria. You mean the protesters? The lawsuits? My own daughter's betrayal. Natalie's face whitened. Daddy, stop. But Richard was beyond stopping. He ranted about classified missions that never happened, military honors he'd never earned, secrets buried beneath hotel foundations. The board watched in horror as their legendary leader disintegrated before their eyes. Sarah Redfeather received the recording that evening. The tribal elder sat in her office, surrounded by documents detailing decades of land theft and environmental violations. This changes everything, she told Wade via secure video link. The councils received evidence about forced labor used to build their first hotel. Native workers, threatened and exploited. Can you prove it? Records, photographs, even surviving witnesses. Sarah's expression hardened. They built their first property using our people's sweat and blood on land stolen from our ancestors. The revelation sparked investigations across multiple states where Lawrence properties bordered tribal lands. Each inquiry exposed new layers of corruption. Meanwhile, Mason Cooper's desperation reached new heights. Trapped between the Iron Knight's demands and his position in Wade's shell company, he made a fatal error, attempting to blackmail Tank. I know you're working against me, Mason said during a late-night meeting in a Vegas parking garage. I've got proof of your disloyalty to our unit. How much is that worth to you? Tank recorded the entire conversation. That's a serious accusation, brother. Got evidence to back it up. Documents, recordings. Going all the way back to that mission where you got shot. Mason's hands shook as he lit a cigarette. I can prove you lied about the equipment failure. Interesting theory. Tank's voice remained calm. Know what I can prove? Your deal with the Iron Knights. The veterans' medications you helped them steal. How many federal charges you think that's worth? The color drained from Mason's face. He'd walked right into Tank's trap, providing another piece of evidence for Wade's collection. In the Lawrence Hotel's kitchen, Samuel Chin's parents worked their usual shift, preparing meals for guests who didn't know they were eating stolen recipes. But something had changed. They stood straighter, moved with new purpose. More business owners are coming forward, Samuel told Wade during their daily briefing. People whose restaurants, shops, and hotels were destroyed by Lawrence family tactics. My parents are organizing them. How many? 20 so far. Marcus is compiling their financial records, documenting the pattern of destruction. Samuel checked his notes. The Lawrence family didn't just compete. They systematically eliminated rivals through any means necessary. The Empire's foundation cracked further when Wade's team located Catherine Lawrence, Richard's estranged sister. She'd been living under an assumed name in Oregon, running a sustainable housing nonprofit. I tried to stop them years ago, Catherine told Izzy during their initial meeting. When I discovered they were dumping toxic waste on tribal lands, I threatened to go public. Richard didn't just silence me, he erased me. Threatened to expose my environmental activism as eco-terrorism unless I disappeared. Catherine's testimony filled crucial gaps in their understanding of the Lawrence family's early years. Her documentation of environmental violations, combined with Sarah's evidence of forced labor and the growing coalition of destroyed business owners, created a devastating picture. At the hospital, Derek continued recovering, working with Samuel to regain his strength while providing crucial intelligence about family operations. The blackmail operation wasn't just about gathering dirt on guests, he explained during a strategy session. They used the hotels to create compromising situations. Hidden cameras, paid provocateurs, doctored room service orders. They didn't just collect secrets, they manufactured them. Rebecca, maintaining her cover as a loyal employee, discovered the extent of Natalie's desperation. The Lawrence heiress was systematically destroying documents, transferring funds, and preparing for what she clearly saw as an inevitable fall. She's not just hiding evidence, Rebecca reported. She's positioning herself to survive the collapse. But she's getting sloppy, making mistakes. The pressure mounted from all sides. Sarah's tribal council launched lawsuits in multiple states. Tank's veterans maintained their protests, their military credentials lending weight to accusations about Richard's stolen valor. Federal investigators, tipped off about the prescription drug thefts, began examining Lawrence hotel medical facilities. Mason, increasingly paranoid, reached out to Natalie through back channels. Each call was monitored by Izzy's team, each desperate conversation revealing more evidence of their crimes. We need to run, Mason urged during one late-night call. Take what we can and disappear before it all falls apart. It's too late, Natalie replied, her voice tight with fear. Wade knows everything. He's not just destroying the company, he's destroying our lives. The Lawrence Empire's carefully constructed world crumbled not through a single blow, but through dozens of precise strikes. Each revelation weakened their foundation, each exposed lie eroded their power. Richard Lawrence, in a moment of clarity, recognized the pattern of destruction. His attempt to intimidate Sarah Redfeather through Tank backfired spectacularly, adding another recorded threat to Wade's evidence cache. Your father's not just losing his grip on the company, Samuel told Derek. He's losing his grip on reality. The stress is accelerating his cognitive decline. Derek nodded sadly. He built an empire on lies. Now those lies are burying him. The act reached its pivotal moment when Natalie, desperate for protection, walked straight into Wade's trap. Her message asking to meet and explain everything wasn't just a plea. It was a surrender. In his command center, surrounded by monitors showing the Lawrence Empire's death throes, Wade allowed himself a small smile. The endgame was approaching, and each player was exactly where they needed to be. Phase 3 was complete. The stage was set for the final act of justice. Chapter 9, Justice Served Cold. The Lawrence family's annual charity gala transformed the grand ballroom into a glittering facade of normalcy. Wealthy donors mingled with social elites, unaware they were players in Wade's carefully orchestrated endgame. Mason Cooper, now working security through Wade's shell company, swept the room with haunted eyes. The once proud Ranger jumped at shadows, his nerves frayed by weeks of calculated pressure. "Everything secure?" Tank asked, his presence both reassurance and threat. "Yes, sir." Mason's hand trembled slightly as he adjusted his earpiece. "No issues to report." Behind the bar, Natalie Lawrence maintained her practiced smile while serving drinks to guests who had no idea their secret scandals were documented in her hidden files. Her emerald eyes darted constantly to the entrance, watching for Wade. Richard Lawrence held court near the podium, his moments of lucidity becoming rarer. "Did I tell you about the time my Rangers unit saved an entire village?" he asked a congressman, embellishing military exploits that never happened. The plan proceeded until Richard, in a startling moment of clarity, recognized the pattern of his empire's destruction. He lurched toward the podium, grabbing the microphone. "Emergency board meeting," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers. "I'm authorizing an immediate sale of all Lawrence properties. Total liquidation, effective immediately." The room froze. Natalie rushed toward her father, but Wade's team was already moving. "Ladies and gentlemen," a commanding voice cut through the chaos. Catherine Lawrence strode into the ballroom, decades of environmental activism evident in her bearing. "I'm afraid my brother cannot legally authorize any sales. As his nearest relative, I filed an injunction based on his documented mental decline." Richard stared at his long-exiled sister. "Katie? You're dead. I made you disappear." "No, Richard. You tried to silence me. But the truth doesn't stay buried forever." The gala erupted into confused murmurs as Catherine produced legal documents halting any asset sales. Behind her, Sarah Redfeather entered with tribal council members, their presence a reminder of the Lawrence family's original sins. Mason, seeing the situation unraveling, made his desperate play. He slipped away from his security post, heading for Richard's private office. Wade's surveillance team tracked his movement as he accessed the computer, downloading encrypted files he thought would save him. He made it as far as the service entrance before running directly into an FBI task force. Marcus Reynolds' former colleagues took great pleasure in arresting him for his role in the prescription drug operation. Mason Cooper, the lead agent, announced, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, wire fraud, and assault with a deadly weapon." Upstairs, Natalie launched her own gambit. She called an emergency board meeting, presenting evidence of Richard's mental instability. "My father is no longer capable of leading this company," she declared, sliding documents across the table. "I have medical records proving his cognitive decline. For the good of the company, I must assume control." "Actually," Rebecca spoke from her position as assistant, "we should review all the evidence." She activated a presentation screen, displaying proof that Natalie had been manipulating Richard's medication, accelerating his symptoms to gain control. The board members watched in horror as their options disappeared. The Lawrence empire wasn't just falling, it was imploding. Wade chose that moment to make his entrance. He walked to the podium with measured steps, his presence drawing all eyes. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying authority earned in combat zones, "you're witnessing not just the end of an era, but the beginning of a new one." He introduced his team one by one. Isabella Martinez as head of security, bringing legitimacy to their protection services. Samuel Chun as director of medical services, his family's expertise restored to its rightful place. Catherine Lawrence as chief sustainability officer, her environmental vision finally empowered. The reorganization unfolded like a military operation. Derek, now recovered, took his place as chief operating officer, his commitment to reform evident in his detailed plans for ethical business practices. Mason's plea deal relegated him to a humbling new reality, checking IDs at a subway station security booth, monitored by Tank's veterans. His military career, his reputation, his dreams of wealth, all vanished like smoke. Natalie faced her own justice. Stripped of her inheritance and position, she found herself serving drinks at the Rusty Nail, the very bar where her betrayal had culminated in violence. The settlement agreement that kept her out of prison required her to work there, a daily reminder of her failures. Whiskey, neat. Wade ordered one evening, sitting at her bar. She poured with trembling hands. Come to gloat. No, come to show you what you lost. He gestured around at the renovated space, now a legitimate veteran-owned business. This place was built on your family's first honest work, before the corruption. Now it's honest again. Richard Lawrence, his mind clouded by advancing dementia, found unexpected peace in a specialized care facility. Catherine oversaw his treatment, ensuring comfort while protecting others from his increasingly confused attempts at manipulation. He talks about Mom sometimes, Derek told Wade during a quiet moment. In his clearer moments, he admits what happened. She really did threaten to expose him, and he made sure she couldn't. The evidence of Maria Lawrence's fate remained sealed, shared only with Derek to provide closure. The official story stayed unchanged. She had abandoned her family. The truth served justice without creating new victims. Sarah Redfeather's tribe received both restoration of their lands and a partnership in the new company's veteran rehabilitation programs. The tribe's healing traditions combined with modern medical care created genuinely effective PTSD treatment centers. Your vision, Sarah told Wade during the opening ceremony. It's what Natalie pretended to want. Actually helping veterans, respecting our heritage, building something meaningful. Samuel's parents reopened their restaurant, their original recipes restored to their rightful place. The Chun family's success symbolized restoration for dozens of business owners who had been crushed by Lawrence family tactics. My father's signature dish, Samuel proudly presented a plate to Wade. Served in his own restaurant again, not a hotel knockoff. The transformation of the Lawrence Empire became a case study in corporate reformation. Wade's leadership emphasized transparency, ethical practices, and genuine service to the veteran community. Tank's security teams set new standards for professional conduct, while Izzy's protocols protected guest privacy instead of exploiting it. Rebecca's role shifted from undercover asset to official compliance officer, ensuring the company's reformed practices remained honest. Her relationship with Derek deepened through their shared commitment to maintaining the positive changes they had helped create. 2 years after the gala that marked the Lawrence Empire's fall, Wade stood at another podium. This time, he waited for his bride, Isabella Martinez, whose strategic brilliance had matched his own throughout their campaign for justice. The wedding celebrated not just their union, but the triumph of integrity over corruption. Samuel's parents catered the event from their restored restaurant. Sarah blessed the ceremony with traditional tribal rituals. Derek, standing as best man, spoke about redemption and real brotherhood. I've seen what loyalty truly means, Derek said, raising his glass. Not blind obedience or fear, but a commitment to what's right. Wade and Izzy show us that love can be both fierce and honorable. Tank's veterans maintained discreet surveillance, ensuring neither Mason nor Natalie could disrupt the celebration. The once mighty Lawrence siblings, reduced to cautionary tales, served as reminders that true strength comes from integrity, not intimidation. The empire that had been built on lies became a foundation for truth. Each day, former Lawrence properties served as sanctuaries for veterans, hosted honest businesses, and demonstrated that success didn't require corruption. Wade's revenge transcended mere destruction. He had rebuilt something stronger from the ashes of betrayal, transforming a legacy of deceit into a monument to honor. The Shadow Wolf's greatest victory wasn't in tearing down his enemies, but in creating something his former brothers-in-arms could be proud to support. The story of Wade Blackwood and the Lawrence Empire became a whispered warning in corporate boardrooms and a beacon of hope for those fighting similar battles. It proved that justice, while sometimes slow, could be both thorough and transformative. In the end, Wade achieved more than revenge. He fulfilled the true promise of the Lawrence family's original dream, creating places of healing, honor, and genuine service to those who had served their country. The betrayal that had sparked his campaign faded into history, replaced by a legacy that would endure through honesty rather than fear. The Shadow Wolf had emerged from the darkness not just victorious, but illuminated by the light of redemption, proving that the most satisfying revenge isn't just destroying what's corrupt, but building something incorruptible in its place. Epilogue. 10 years later. The Grand Lawrence Hotel, now renamed the Valor Center, bustled with activity as veterans and their families gathered for the 10th anniversary celebration of its transformation. The building's architecture remained impressive, but its purpose had fundamentally changed. Wade Blackwood stood in his office, reviewing the latest expansion plans with his wife, Isabella "Izzy" Martinez Blackwood. Their partnership, forged in the crucible of revenge and redemption, had grown stronger over the decades since their wedding. The new PTSD treatment facility in Colorado is exceeding expectations, Izzy reported, scrolling through data on her tablet. Sarah Redfeather's integration of traditional healing practices with modern therapy has become the industry standard. Wade nodded, touching a framed photograph on his desk, their twin daughters, Elena and Maria, aged 7, playing with Derek Lawrence's son at last year's company picnic. How's the security upgrade coming along? Tank's team has implemented the new protocols at all locations. Izzy smiled, remembering how their relationship had evolved from tactical alliance to deep love. He's talking about semi-retirement, but we all know he'll never fully step away. Thomas "Tank" Morrison had transformed the company's security division into an elite force specialized in veteran protection and rehabilitation facility security. His network of former military personnel now operated across all 50 states, providing not just protection but also job opportunities for veterans transitioning to civilian life. Speaking of retirement, Wade said, "Heard anything from our old friends?" Izzy pulled up a surveillance report. Old habits died hard. Mason's still working subway security in Staten Island. Monthly psych evaluations show he's accepted his situation, even found some peace in the routine. He's been sober for years now. The daily reminder of his fall from grace had ultimately helped Mason Cooper rebuild some semblance of a life. Under constant monitoring by Tank's veterans, he'd gradually transformed from a bitter enemy into a cautionary tale, occasionally even speaking to new security recruits about the costs of betrayal. And Natalie? Still at the Rusty Nail. Izzy's expression softened slightly. She's head bartender now. Actually made something of herself there. Rebecca says she's different, humbled, maybe even genuinely changed. The Rusty Nail had flourished under its veteran ownership. The historic bar became a model for similar establishments across the country, providing employment opportunities for veterans while maintaining its connection to the Lawrence family's only honest business venture. A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. Derek Lawrence entered, his limp barely noticeable now. The Chun family's here for the anniversary dinner planning. Samuel Chun had expanded his family's restaurant empire beyond its original glory. Their authentic Asian cuisine was now featured in dedicated spaces within each Valor Center, a testament to how honest business could thrive when freed from corruption. "Mr. Blackwood," Samuel's father greeted Wade with a bow. "We've prepared something special for the anniversary celebration. My wife has recreated dishes from our first restaurant, with a fusion twist that honors both our heritage and our future." The Chun family's resurrection had inspired others. Under Derek's leadership as COO, the company actively sought out businesses that had been destroyed by the old Lawrence Empire, offering partnerships and restoration opportunities. Sarah Redfeather's plane just landed, Rebecca announced, entering with a stack of reports. Her marriage to Derek 5 years ago had formally united the two sides of the Lawrence legacy, the corrupted and the redeemed. Sarah's Tribal Healing Center program had expanded beyond initial expectations. The combination of traditional Native American practices with modern medical care proved so successful that medical schools now sent students for specialized training. "How's the documentary coming along?" Wade asked Rebecca, referring to the authorized film about the company's transformation. Catherine's provided incredible historical context. Rebecca smiled. "The contrast between Richard's corrupt empire and what we've built, it's powerful stuff." Catherine Lawrence had become an unexpected cornerstone of the company's new identity. Her environmental initiatives set industry standards, while her testimony about the company's transformation helped secure contracts and partnerships. Richard Lawrence had passed away 3 years earlier in his care facility, moments of lucidity mixed with confused ramblings about his fabricated military service. Catherine had ensured he received compassionate care while protecting others from his manipulative tendencies, even in decline. The anniversary celebration would bring together all the key players in the company's transformation. Marcus Reynolds, who had returned to FBI service, now headed a task force on corporate corruption, occasionally consulting with Wade's team on industry reform initiatives. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs confirmed his attendance, Derek added. They're interested in implementing our treatment model nationwide. Wade moved to the window, observing the veterans and families arriving for the evening's events. A decade ago, this building had represented corruption and exploitation. Now it stood as a beacon of hope and healing. Remember when Tank caught Mason trying to blackmail him? Derek chuckled. Seems like another lifetime. Different world back then, Wade agreed. The tactical genius that had orchestrated the Lawrence Empire's fall now served a greater purpose, creating safe spaces for veterans to heal and rebuild. The company's success stemmed not just from its services, but from its authenticity. Each Valor Center incorporated elements of local culture and history, working with communities rather than exploiting them. Sarah Redfeather's arrival brought news of the latest tribal partnership. The Arizona facility's location has been approved by the Tribal Council, she reported. They're particularly impressed with our environmental impact studies. Catherine's environmental initiatives had transformed the company's relationship with tribal lands. Instead of exploitation, they now modeled responsible development and cultural respect. The Iron Knights motorcycle gang disbanded last year, Tank reported, joining the gathering. Our rehabilitation program helped their last few members transition to legitimate work. Full circle from when Mason was training them. The prescription drug theft operation that Mason had facilitated had led to the creation of one of their most successful programs, secure medication management systems designed specifically for veteran care facilities. Samuel Chin's parents prepared a private dinner for the core team, serving dishes that told the story of their journey. This dish, Mrs. Chun explained, setting down a steaming plate, was my husband's father's recipe. We served it the day we opened our first restaurant, and again the day we reopened after the Lawrence Empire fell. The meal became a moment of reflection. Each person present represented a different aspect of the transformation, from Samuel's medical expertise to Tank's security protocols, from Sarah's healing traditions to Catherine's environmental wisdom. Wade's twin daughters burst into the room, followed by their nanny. Daddy, Uncle Derek's boy showed us the new garden. The children's presence reminded everyone of what they'd built. Not just a reformed company, but a legacy of integrity for the next generation. The tribal elders say children born in times of healing carry that medicine in their spirits, Sarah observed, watching the young ones play. The garden the children mentioned was part of Catherine's latest initiative, teaching young people about environmental responsibility and cultural respect through hands-on experience. Later that evening, Wade visited the Rusty Nail. Natalie was behind the bar, her clothes replaced by practical work attire. A decade of honest work had left its mark. She moved with the genuine confidence of someone who had earned their position rather than inherited it. The usual? She asked, reaching for the whiskey. Just water tonight, Wade replied. Big day tomorrow. Natalie nodded, understanding the reference to the anniversary celebration. 10 years. Sometimes I still can't believe how it all turned out. Having regrets? About my actions? Always. She set his water down. About the outcome? No. What you built. It's what I pretended to want back then. You actually did it. The conversation was interrupted by a group of veterans entering the bar, students from the latest PTSD treatment program. Natalie served them with respect and efficiency, demonstrating how far she'd come from the manipulative socialite she'd once been. Your daughters started school this year, right? She asked Wade. Elena and Maria? Yes. They're already showing Izzy's strategic mind. Wade allowed himself a small smile. And her commitment to justice. The next morning, the anniversary celebration brought together hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by the company's transformation. Veterans shared stories of healing, business owners spoke of resurrection and redemption, tribal members demonstrated traditional practices. Derek took the podium first. 10 years ago, this company stood for corruption and exploitation. Today, we're a model of ethical business practices and genuine service. This transformation wasn't just about replacing bad with good. It was about proving that success doesn't require compromise of principles. Tank followed, discussing the security division's evolution. We protect more than buildings and people. We protect values, integrity, the promise we make to those who've served our country. Sarah Redfeather spoke about healing. Our traditions teach us that medicine isn't just about curing illness. It's about restoring balance. What we've built here represents that balance between modern progress and timeless wisdom. Catherine addressed environmental initiatives, while Samuel discussed medical innovations. Rebecca presented statistics showing the company's impact on veteran rehabilitation and local business development. Finally, Wade stood to speak. The tactical genius who had orchestrated both the Lawrence Empire's fall and its resurrection surveyed the gathered crowd. A decade ago, I sought revenge against those who betrayed me, he began. But somewhere along the way, that mission transformed into something greater. We didn't just tear down corruption. We built something incorruptible in its place. He gestured to his team, Izzy's strategic brilliance, Derek's administrative wisdom, Tank's steadfast loyalty, Sarah's healing knowledge, the Chun family's resilient spirit, Catherine's environmental vision, Rebecca's attention to detail, and all the others who had contributed to their success. This anniversary celebrates more than a company's transformation. It celebrates the power of redemption, the strength of integrity, and the reality that true success comes not from dominating others, but from serving a greater purpose. The celebration continued into the evening. Veterans shared meals with tribal elders. Business owners networked with security specialists. Medical professionals discussed integrated treatment approaches with traditional healers. Wade watched it all from a quiet corner, Izzy at his side. Their daughters played with other children in the garden Catherine had designed, their laughter a reminder of innocence restored. "Did you ever imagine this?" Izzy asked softly. "When you were planning your revenge?" "No," Wade admitted. "I thought justice meant destruction. Instead, it meant reconstruction, building something stronger, truer, more lasting than what was destroyed." In the decades to come, the story of Wade Blackwood and the Lawrence Empire's transformation would be studied in business schools, cited in corporate ethics courses, and referenced in discussions of veteran care reform. But its greatest legacy lived in the daily operations of each Valor Center, where veterans found healing, communities found partnership, and the next generation learned that success and integrity could coexist. The Shadow Wolf had emerged from darkness, not just victorious, but illuminated, proving that the most powerful response to betrayal isn't revenge, but renaissance, the creation of something so noble that it transforms enemies into examples and wounds into wisdom. 10 years after justice was served, Wade Blackwood's greatest achievement wasn't the destruction of his enemies, but the construction of a legacy that turned their betrayal into the foundation for something truly honorable, a company that served with integrity, healed with wisdom, and proved that the strongest buildings rise not from secrets and lies, but from truth and devotion to a worthy cause. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.